Hey, this is Kyle at Projection Hub, and today I'm going to be talking about how to create a business plan for a professional service firm or a consulting firm that if maybe you're trying to get financing approved for your business to grow it or start it, or maybe even raise investment for that, or perhaps even just doing internal planning. This video will outline the structure for a business plan that you can use, but primarily I'm going to highlight 5 key points that I think are really going to make or break the business plan, especially like if you want to increase your likelihood of getting approved for financing. This is kind of geared towards that goal. So you can see here, I'm going to be using a free business plan template. You can get this down in the description of the video below. It's specifically made for a consulting firm professional service. Now it's pre-filled out with a fictitious example or use case for like an HR consulting firm or like a talent recruiter firm. But obviously there's a lot of different types of professional services. You could be a creative agency, for example. And so I'm not going to like explain everything specifically just for an HR firm, but that is what it's pre-filled out with as an example. But I'll show you some tips and tricks, and those 5 key points I mentioned can apply to really any industry, and some of the tools I'll show you how to use. So who is Projection Hub? We've helped more than 50,000 businesses and entrepreneurs create financial projections for their businesses, for their loan applications, their business plans, their pitch decks. And many of those businesses, hundreds of those businesses have been professional services or consulting type firms. And so we have some experience working there. And before my time with Projection Hub, I actually was a small business lender for about 7 years. And so worked with a lot of different professional service type businesses to review their business plans and put together packages for loan applications. And so some experience seeing that as well. And so if at any point you find this video helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps us here at Projection Hub. And also consider joining the channel and following the channel by subscribing. Not all of our content is about professional services, but we do release a lot of content, just tips and tricks on managing the financial side of your business and things to look out for on that front to try and help you grow your business. So again, this business plan template is available down in the description if you want to get it and follow along. Okay, so why is your business plan important? Now, this might sound obvious, but maybe to some others it's not. And the main thing we want to do is your business plan is demonstrating your roadmap to success. So I want you to focus on your business plan being less about educating the audience and more about talking through the specifics of what you're going to offer and how you plan to reach your goals, what your goals are and how you plan to reach those. Now, if your professional service firm is geared or is focused around a more like novel concept or really like niche market, then maybe you need to do a little bit more educating or describing what you're doing, but don't overdo it. Your lender does not need to be an expert in your business in order for them to make the decision that they're going to. They just need to understand and agree with and have confidence in your plan to be successful. So you're going to see as I kind of scroll through here, initially you'll notice that the table of contents, like this business plan template, is not super long. Now there are a couple things. It is, to dispel this myth, is your business plan does not have to be really long to be good. It's more important that you jam pack it full of important details and the key highlights rather than fluff just for the sake of making it more elaborative or more, more detail in there. And so, if you need to go through the exercise of writing a 50-page business plan to get all your thoughts down on paper and really feel like you have a grasp on everything, then definitely do that. But refine a version of that down to 20 pages that you're going to give to your lender, because the really important details can get lost in all of the extra fluff that's in there that your lender doesn't need to necessarily know in order to make a decision. And so keep that in mind when you're kind of refining that down. Now, really quickly, just on the structure of this business plan template, you're going to see this recurring theme of a heading, subheadings, and then you're going to have a brief, like 1-sentence explanation as to like what that subheading is calling for, and then a 1 to 2 sentence example for our fictitious use case here. And so don't take this business plan template as like law. Like, you may need to elaborate more in specific sections. You might even need to add some new sections for your business. This is just here to serve as kind of a guide and a starting point so that you're not starting from scratch. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this. But first off, here we have the executive summary. I want you to think about this as if it's like a cover letter for a resume for like a job application. So this is a good chance, on the very first page, just to highlight some of the specifics about your business or the key points. So you can see here, we've got an overview, like what it is, what it does, where it is. I don't know if I said where it is twice, but that's just those highlights you want to include in there. You have short-term, long-term goals. You have a mission statement in here, which, that's not going to, obviously this stuff isn't going to make the difference in getting approved. But if it doesn't exist, then your whole business plan is a little confusing if you're not teeing up the rest of the business plan for success. Some people choose to include like a financial snapshot in here, whether that's like startup funds, what are the startup costs going to be, where are the sources of those funds coming from, when they plan to break even, etc. If that feels like, something you want to do, then definitely include that. Then this second section here, the company description, is kind of just an extension of the executive summary, just a little bit more I don't know, legalese. It's a little more technical speak, I guess, than in the beginning. So, but still important. But yeah, you can kind of use this as a guide as you're filling yours out. Okay, market analysis. And this is going to bring us to key point number 1. They're all highlighted in the business plan template with some specific examples. So when you get this, it'd be kind of helpful to guide you through that. Now, the point of the market analysis is we are trying to demonstrate to whoever's reading the business plan that there is room in the market for what we're trying to offer. And if there's not room, or if it's really competitive, or even if it's saturated, what are we doing, or how are we going to disrupt that market? What are we going to offer that's new to steal some of the existing market share from another company, whether that's local or national, or whatever the scope of your professional service is? Now, speaking from experience, on the professional service side, sometimes it's a little bit easier to think about it in like a local scope versus like, I'm going to offer HR and talent, whatever, to everyone across the nation, because it's harder to sell a company on the other side of the country to join you if there's not some sort of that connection, and the local connection can a lot of times bridge that gap. So sometimes it's easier to start out. Like I live in Indianapolis, to say like, we're going to be a firm that offers these services to Indianapolis businesses. And then as you grow, you can obviously expand that reach to be outside of that. And it's easier to kind of assess your competitors and whatnot. So getting ahead of myself there, what does this include? Obviously, we want to look at the industry, the local industry itself, the competitors that are most, that we think can be the most direct competitors. Who is your target client, some market opportunities, and that's all good to include in here. But the key point is we want to provide some specific examples of the research that we're doing that demonstrates that there is actually room in the market for the business. You might be wondering, well, how do I do that? So one way is you could obviously pay professionally to have some market research help done. Secondly, there are a number of free things you can try to do. I'll even give you some examples here. You can go and do some, like Google has a free keyword planning tool. So you can go and see a lot of professional services heavily invest in SEO. So like when someone is searching for something, they want to show up in that search result. Now, the example that this is filled out with, which is like HR services or an HR consultant, talent recruiter that's located in Denver, that's really specific. And I wouldn't say that's like a super buzzwordy search term. This is probably really heavily referral based because it's very B2B, it's very corporate. And so you can see there's not a ton of search volume for this. So this doesn't mean that this wouldn't work for you, because someone might be saying like logo designer near me, logo design, creative agency in Denver or in Indianapolis. Some of those other ones are going to have probably higher search terms. So that is something you can do, because, and then I'll point out right here, you can see the average monthly searches is helpful. You want to see that those numbers are bigger, but also what's really helpful is seeing the change rate, the growth rate. Now, if you were seeing these go up by 30%, up by 40%, and it gives you some new ideas. See, I only searched for these 3, but it's giving me all these related ideas. So you can see what areas, what type of search phrases, what type of services are growing and trending in the right direction that you might want to try to rank for. And then of course you get advertising bid ranges here, which might be helpful for your case. So the reason I point this out is, depending upon your professional service niche, understanding if there is search volume and what direction it's trending might be helpful to affirm to you and to put in your business plan that there is a growing need for it, that there is a market for it. If it's declining or if it's zero, I don't know if that would necessarily be an indication that there isn't a market for it, but that it's just not showing up here in just typical search, SEO, organic search. Another thing you can also do is identify some key competitors. Now, this is a tool called Ahrefs. It's not free. It's also not really expensive, but this enables you to take a competitor's website and then basically just see what all they're ranking for, how much traffic their website's getting. So if you plan to try and leverage SEO as a way to grow your business by people finding your website organically, we can go and we can kind of see, well, what are our competitors actually ranking for? So if this is a boutique HR firm in Denver, for example, and so if we just look at the keywords that they're ranking for, so this is a pretty small firm. This industry doesn't have a ton of search traffic. It's heavily network related, referral related, but this example still stands. You can come here, search up your competitors, see what they're ranking for. And then a quick tip is, if you're using a tool like this, you want to look for keywords that are high volume, that are relevant, and have low keyword difficulty. So these are all really low, because what that is a signal for is it would be easy to rank for those. There's not a lot of competition to rank for those keywords. So if you launch a website and start writing blog posts, packing in these keywords and answering questions around those, you can try to rank for those quickly and compete on that front. So those are just some quick examples of, how you could probably do some market research and then include some findings from that in your business plan. It doesn't have to be exactly that. I'm just trying to show you some examples that it's really good to to give some tangible demonstration of the science that's going into you identifying your market, rather than just saying like, oh, I know it's out there, so we'll find businesses. But those are some tools that you can consider doing for that. Okay, moving on, marketing and sales strategy. So the market analysis was to try and demonstrate that there is a market, that it does exist. There's room in the market for us. Now, what we want to do in the marketing and sales strategy, and you can see as key point number 2 is going to bring us here, is we want to demonstrate how we're actually going to get those customers. How are we actually going to attract those customers? And one great way to do this in a business plan, because you might be thinking, well, maybe it's a startup, so you haven't done it yet, and I totally understand that. And so maybe you're like, well, how am I going to demonstrate how I'm going to get the customers if I haven't gone out and got them yet? And so this section of business plan should include the basics. It should include your product description, your pricing strategy, your sales strategy, where are you going to sell it? You're going to have a website, you're going to be on social media. That should all be minimum expectations. What's really going to make your business plan shine is if you can demonstrate a thing called traction, which is a very common term in like the tech space. And it's really just an example of momentum, especially pre-launch or pre-revenue. That makes traction really powerful. The 2 best examples of traction are actual sales, if you can do something to generate some money pre-launch, and 2 is like getting names, building awareness, building a following of people who are locked in and engaged and ready to join you in whatever you're doing. And so let's look at some examples of those. Again, professional services is a little less black and white on like maybe ideas, so you might have to get a little creative, and the demonstration of traction is going to be different based upon your industry niche when it comes to your professional service. But when I was a lender, the type of traction I really liked to see was almost like hustle related, grit related. So professional services is a really good space where someone could actually do it on the side, as a side hustle or as a side gig, maybe while they still work full time somewhere. Right? So maybe that's your case. Maybe you're doing a creative agency, and I did this before. I've done freelance marketing and design services on the side, but I still had a full-time job, and I had some clients on the side, right? And if I really would have enjoyed and wanted to see that grow, you can slowly add customers, and then maybe you get to the point where you're like, okay, I want to get a loan, I want to hire a person, I want to go full-time, etc., whatever you want to do there. And so that's an example of traction, right? If you have some sort of proof that you're like, I already have some customers doing this thing, that's an example of traction. Include that in your business plan. And then some other examples could be like, build a social media following around your specific expertise and build some following and some traction there. Even if you're not selling something, just being able to say like, yeah, I've got a TikTok channel with 100,000 followers that are interested in HR and recruiting tips. That's great. Put that in there. People see you as an expert. That's an affirmation that you know what you're talking about. So those are some examples of customer acquisition and traction. Moving forward, operations management. This is going to be kind of about the logistics of the business itself. How's the organization going to be structured? Who's on the team? And key point number 3 is going to be relevant industry experience. So it's really important that you include and demonstrate to, let's say, your lender that you know what you're doing and you know what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't exactly, that you have a partner or a key employee on the team that does know what you're getting into. Now, when it comes to professional service, I feel like your success as a professional service really does come down to the fact that you're an expert and you know what you're doing. So you probably need to have substantial experience in the thing that you're going to offer as a professional service in order for your lender to probably be on board with what you're doing. So make sure you highlight your industry experience or related experience as much as you can in your business plan. I think that's a pretty easy one for this industry. Okay, now moving along to financial projections. Obviously, we're a little biased. We are Projection Hub. This is what we help businesses do. But even before my time with Projection Hub, when I was a lender, this is still by far the most important part of a business plan or a loan application, is spending time looking at the financial projections. And so let's just do a quick scan through here. We're breaking down what our startup costs are going to be. We've got some revenue projections or forecasts in here. I know this is maybe a little hard to read, but if you zoom in, you can read these, but it's like a revenue breakdown, net income, profit, cost of goods sold. We've got some key ratios here for like gross profit margin, and got a breakdown of our operating expenses. We've got a 5-year pro forma statement, income statement, 5-year cash flow statement. You can include a balance sheet. We've got some break-even analysis and some charts. And so all of those things I just showed you were actually created using this template. And so I've linked this template down in the description below if you're interested. Just a really quick demonstration of this. All of the blue areas you see are where you'd input information. It's all organized for a professional service or consulting-based business. Put in any loans you have. It's going to help you actually calculate how much cash you should expect to have in order to have enough to launch your business, including covering losses until you break even. You'll put in the professionals on your team that are going to be providing the services, how they're compensated, how you're going to attract customers, your advertising to attract customers, what are the services you're going to offer. So you're going to just put in some of this information that's relevant to what you do, that you already know about it. You're going to input your monthly, expected expenses. Very easy to input. And then if you have any support staff, that aren't the service providers in here, and then it's going to generate all of those charts and financial statements for you. Everything that your lender is going to need, or anyone reviewing your business plan is going to need, you can see that in here. And so that's linked down in the description below. You are going to have projections for your business plan, especially if you're trying to get financing or an investment, and especially if you're a startup. You don't have to get the template, obviously, but if you plan to pay an accountant to do it, it's going to cost a lot more money. And that template is less than $100. And I'll actually give you a promo code at the end of the video. But yeah, so financial projections are not key point number 4 because they are expected. They should be in your business plan. But what is key point number 4? And that is realistic financial projections. And I forgot to mention, there's a video demonstration on how to fill out the whole template as well. But realistic financial projections, you might be asking, well, how do you know if they're realistic? And a pretty simple answer, you just go to Google. And even now, in the age of like AI chatbots, you can also use a tool like ChatGPT or Bard to help you do this as well, as much as you trust those tools and are comfortable using them. And so what I would do is, again, I showed you the template. Take a look at maybe some of the projections that we've created. We've got some of these key ratios, for example. And let's look to find out what my type of professional service industry, what are some averages? What are some typical ranges that, what's a typical profit margin for an HR and talent recruiting firm, right? So if I ask a thing like that to ChatGPT, it's going to give me some feedback, and it's going to say, we've got 15 to 35%. Okay, that's really helpful. What did my projections say? Obviously we're going to have a loss in the first year and we're slowly growing up, and then we start to get up into 7, 20%, 27%. So that's not way out in left field. You could also do the same thing at Google. Okay, Google was telling me 15 to 25%, still within that range. So you can look up any financial data point that is in your projections, whether it's typical revenue, how many clients should I expect, what is a percentage of operating expenses compared to sales. You can search up anything just to make sure they're realistic. Your lender is not going to have a sheet of paper that says that it has to be these answers, but they are going to be looking for anything that seems off or outliers. So they just want to know that what you're projecting is actually possible, and not, that you're missing something obvious or, being unrealistic about your expectations. So it can be good to be conservative in the first couple of years, but it's okay if year 4 or 5 is starting to get pretty optimistic, as long as initially you're kind of being conservative to account for repaying of a loan. Okay, so that is financial projections. And we are going to go through that. Brings us to the end of the business plan template, but we're missing one key point, and that is demonstrating skin in the game. I want you to think about, if you're buying a house, you're going to put a down payment down, and the bank or your lender that's giving you the mortgage is also going to put a lien on your house. So if you default on that loan, you're going to lose your down payment, you're going to lose your house. Now, I don't say that to say like the bank is coming to wreck your life and take things from you, but a lot of times when I was a lender, people had this expectation that they had received, this advice that they should keep business and personal separate. That is great advice when it comes to like your bookkeeping, your accounting. But when it comes to like your collateral and getting a loan, that is not a realistic expectation. So you should expect that a lender is going to want to see your loan collateralized as much as possible. And an unfortunate reality of a professional service business, you don't have a lot of equipment. So there's not going to be collateral. You're probably not buying a building. You're probably going to rent. And so that's not going to be collateral. And so you need to be prepared to offer what you have. Now, that might be personal assets. That might be a free and clear vehicle, a second lien on your home, something like that. At least you don't need to just come out of the gate and offer those things. But if you are demonstrating what collateral you might have available, that's going to really mean a lot to your lender, because it's not going to be like pulling teeth for them to try and, pull that out of you. Okay. So just be prepared that is going to be a reality of that process, especially if you're trying to get financing. Okay. And then that is it. That's the 5 key points for creating a professional service or consulting firm business plan. If you like the video, again, give us a thumbs up. That really helps us. Consider subscribing to the channel. And I promised you a promo code. It's going to be PH20BP would get you 20% discount off of this. I assure you, by the time you open up this is not going to say insurance agency. It's going to say professional service firm. Go ahead and grab the template. Reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com. If you have any questions, we would be happy to help you. And thanks for watching.